in the Han's estate sitting on the cliffs of California. The raw, relentless chaos of two 8-year-old twins destroying everything in sight echoes through the marble hallways day and night. Their mother is gone. She died in a car crash on the coast road 2 years ago, and nobody in that house has been the same since. And now the heirs to one of the most feared empires in America reject every attempt of comfort extended toward them. No one, not trained nannies flown in from Manhattan, not child specialists from Beverly Hills, not even the Korean Mafia boss himself, can calm the future rulers of the realm, Soo-hyun and Seo-jin Han. Until Alana Brooks, a 38-year-old black woman from Atlanta, Georgia, arrives at the front gate with a modest resume and a calm that the house immediately tries to swallow whole. She was never meant to cross this threshold. The agency almost didn't send her. The head of security almost turned her away. But something happens when she walks through those doors that no one in that household can immediately explain. Before we proceed, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Because right now, inside one of the most dangerous private residences on the West Coast, a question hangs in the air that nobody, not the armed guards, not the estate's 12 cameras, not even the man who built this empire with his bare hands, can answer. What kind of quiet does it take to reach children that fear itself could not tame? The morning it finally breaks open begins with glass. Not the soft clink of a dropped cup. Not an accident. A deliberate, full-armed sweep across an antique side table in the East Corridor, and a Venetian vase worth more than most people's cars explodes across white marble in a cascade of pale blue and gold. The sound cracks through the entire wing like a gunshot. Staff members freeze in doorways. A housekeeper presses herself flat against the wall, hands shaking at her sides. 2 security guards appear at the corridor's entrance, and stop. They don't move forward. They exchange a look that says everything, not our call. At the center of it all stand 2 8-year-old boys, identical in face, identical in the cold stillness behind their eyes. Soo-hyun stands with his arms at his sides, chest rising and falling with something that is not quite breathing and not quite rage, something older than both. His brother, Seo-jin, holds a curved shard of the broken vase in his right palm, pressed deliberately against his own skin. Not deep enough to draw blood. Deep enough to make a point. And from the open balcony above the corridor, Jae-min Han watches. He grips the railing with one hand, knuckles pale against dark iron. The man that federal investigators in 3 cities have spent 11 years trying to build a case against. The man whose name alone clears rooms in Las Vegas boardrooms and Seattle shipping offices. The man that Wall Street calls a visionary and the underworld calls something that cannot be printed. He cannot move. He cannot speak. He stands above his sons and he is, for the first time in his adult life, completely powerless, and every person in that corridor knows it, and not one of them will ever say so out loud. Then Seo-jin lifts his eyes to the ceiling, to nowhere in particular, and his voice comes out barely above a whisper, flat, deliberate, a child performing something learned from watching adults survive. If she were here, he says, we wouldn't have to. No one asks who she is. No one breathes. The estate's official record states that Min Ji-han died in an automobile accident on the Pacific Coast Highway 2 years prior. The underworld has its own version. The twins have never spoken about it. They did not cry at the funeral. They stood in matching black suits with their hands folded and their eyes dry and their faces unreadable, and the people who noticed said it was the most frightening thing they had seen at any gathering in their lives. Have you ever watched a child act strong when what they actually are is terrified? Drop a yes or no in the comments right now, because what happens next in this house is going to make a lot more sense if you have. The Han estate, known to the FBI's Organized Crime Division by the internal file nicknamed the Citadel, sits on 4 acres above the Pacific in a part of Malibu that does not appear on public real estate listings. Its glass walls face the ocean. Its marble floors hold no warmth. Jae-min built it to be impenetrable. He succeeded in every way that mattered to him then, and in none of the ways that matter to him now. 3 nannies have left this year alone. The first filed a lawsuit, citing psychological distress, and accepted a settlement that included a non-disclosure agreement so thorough her own attorney called it extraordinary. The second had a breakdown in the kitchen during her second week and was escorted off the property by a man who handed her a check and said nothing else. The third, a composed woman from Chicago who came with 2 decades of childcare credentials, lasted 9 days before Soo-hyun walked calmly to her side during breakfast and whispered something in her ear that made the color drain from her face entirely. She was on a flight back to Illinois by that afternoon. She has never discussed what he said. The security team reviewed footage from the previous night and found what they always find, the twins, between 2 and 3 in the morning, standing motionless in the hallway directly outside their father's private office. Not trying to enter. Not speaking to each other. Just standing. Listening. Watching the thin line of light beneath the door. Nobody has told Jae-min about this footage. Nobody knows how to. When the Beverly Hills agency calls to say they are sending a replacement, the head of security expects another polished resume and a woman who will last until the first broken lamp. What steps through the front entrance of the Citadel at 8:45 on a Tuesday morning is Alana Brooks, tall, unhurried, dark-skinned with close-cropped braids and the kind of posture that comes not from training but from having already survived something significant. She carries one bag. She looks at the marble floors, the vaulted ceilings, the cameras positioned at every angle, and she says nothing. She notices the silence first. Not the absence of noise, the estate is not silent. She notices the way the silence is used here, the way it functions as a wall, as a warning, as a test administered to every person who enters. She has worked in houses where silence meant peace. This is not that kind. She is shown to her quarters by a staff member who does not make eye contact. She is given a single sheet of rules typed in a clean sans serif font. She reads it once, folds it, and places it in a drawer. When she walks into the east corridor for the first time and finds Seo-jin watching her from 12 feet away with an expression that belongs on someone 3 times his age, she does not speed up or slow down. She keeps her pace exactly where it is. He looks at her braids for a long moment. Then he says, "You'll leave by Friday." Alana stops. She looks at him, not past him, not over him. Directly at him. "No," she says quietly. "I won't." Somewhere above them, on the balcony that overlooks the corridor, Jae-min Han has not moved. His expression does not change. But he does not look away. Subscribe to see how this unfolds, and comment where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is going. The ink spreads across the Persian rug like a slow, dark tide, and neither twin moves. Soo-hyun stands to the left of it, arms folded, watching Alana's face with the focused patience of someone waiting for a specific reaction. Seo-jin is to the right, the empty ink bottle still loose in his fingers. Between them, the crystal lamp lies in pieces on the marble border where the rug ends, and the silence that follows the crash is the kind that has weight to it, the kind that presses against your chest. Every person in that house who has stood in this position has done one of 2 things. They have raised their voice, or they have reached for their phone to call someone with more authority. Both responses satisfied the twins. Both confirmed exactly what they needed to believe, that every adult in their world operated from panic, and panic could be controlled. Alana does neither. She looks at the ink. She looks at the lamp. Then she lowers herself slowly to one knee on the marble, just outside the edge of the rug, and she stays there. Growing up in Southwest Atlanta, in a household held together by a mother who worked 2 jobs and a faith that didn't always stretch far enough, Alana learned early that children who destroy things are rarely angry at the things they destroy. She learned it again in the Fulton County foster system, sitting across from kids whose files read like case studies in what happens when adults consistently disappear. She learned it a 3rd time in a grief counselor's waiting room, 6 weeks after her younger brother Trayton was shot 3 blocks from their childhood home on a Wednesday afternoon, for no reason that ever fully made sense to her or anyone else. She knows what testing looks like. She knows what it means when a child makes themselves the storm, when the destruction is not the point, but the response to it is. These boys are not cruel. They are checking to see if she will leave. "Do you hear that?" she asks. Neither twin speaks. But Co Jean's grip on the ink bottle shifts. "The ocean," she says. Her voice does not perform calm. It simply is calm, the kind that comes from having already been through the thing you were afraid of. When it's angry, it doesn't stand on the shore and explain itself. It just hits. Over and over. Until something gives. She looks directly at Soo-hyun. But when it settles, it still has all that power. It just stops spending it on the rocks. Soo-hyun's jaw tightens. Something moves behind his eyes, not softness exactly, but the thing that comes just before softness, the thing people build walls to prevent. His chin lifts slightly. His shoulders hold their position. But his throat moves in a single, almost invisible swallow, and for exactly 3 seconds, the architecture of his face does something it has not done in front of another person in 2 years. It almost breaks. He stops it. He pulls it back like a hand yanked from a flame. But it was there, and Alana saw it, and she says nothing about it, which is the only correct response, and somehow he knows that too. She saw the storm before it broke. Most people don't. Subscribe so you're not the last to notice the warning signs, because what this woman does next inside that house changes everything. Upstairs, in the security monitoring room adjacent to his private office, Jae-min Han sits in front of a screen and watches the footage from 3 different angles. He rewinds to the moment she kneels. Watches it again. His face gives nothing away, it never does, but his right hand, resting flat on the desk, presses down slightly harder against the surface when she says the word grief. He watches her move through the rest of the corridor afterward and notices something that his head of security has apparently not thought to flag. In 40 minutes of footage across 6 camera positions, Alana Brooks has not once looked directly at a single lens. Not a glance. Not a check. She moves through a fully monitored estate as though no one is watching her, not because she doesn't know the cameras are there, but because it genuinely does not change how she behaves. In Jae-min's world, that is either the mark of someone completely harmless or someone extraordinarily disciplined. He has not yet decided which. When he summons her to his private study that evening, the Pacific is dark beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass, and the room smells of black tea gone cold and something faintly like cedar. He does not offer her a seat. She takes one anyway, not aggressively, simply without ceremony, the way a person sits down in a room they have decided not to be intimidated by. He asks her about her background. She answers without embellishment. He pushes at the edges of her answers the way he pushes at everything, testing load-bearing points, looking for the place where the structure weakens. She tells him she has worked with children that the system had already written off. She tells him she has sat in rooms with men whose authority was backed by weapons and by money and by the weight of institutional power, and that the ones who caused the most lasting damage were rarely the loudest ones in the room. He is quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you afraid of me?" Alana looks at him steadily. "Should I be?" He does not answer. The Pacific moves in the dark behind him, and neither of them speaks, and the silence between them is an entirely different kind than the silence the twins use. This one does not press. It waits. The black SUV doesn't slow down until it is close enough that Alana can see her own reflection in the passenger window. She had turned onto Lincoln Boulevard from the parking structure in Santa Monica, both twins buckled in the back seat after a private art session that ran 20 minutes long. The drive back to Malibu was quiet, the good kind of quiet that had started appearing in small measures over the past 2 weeks, the kind where the twins sat without manufacturing tension. Co Jean had a smudge of burnt sienna on his left wrist. Soo-hyun was watching the streetlights. Then the SUV pulls alongside them and holds there, matching speed exactly, and Alana feels the specific stillness that moves through a body before the mind has fully processed what the eyes are seeing. She does not accelerate. She does not reach for her phone. She keeps both hands on the wheel and her eyes forward, and she breathes slowly, because the twins are watching her face in the rearview mirror to see what she does. The SUV cuts in front of her, not violently, just firmly, the way a door is closed rather than slammed, and she brings the car to a full stop on the shoulder. Engine still running. The rear window of the SUV lowers. The man inside is somewhere in his mid-50s, broad-shouldered, with a face that has learned over many years how to appear completely relaxed during moments that are not relaxed at all. His suit is dark and well-fitted. His eyes move to Alana with the particular quality of someone conducting an assessment they have already completed. "Wrong house to work in," he says. Conversationally. Like a neighbor commenting on the weather. From the back seat, both twins go rigid at the same moment. Then Soo-hyun says it, barely above a whisper. "Uncle." The man in the SUV doesn't look at the twins. He keeps his eyes on Alana. He lets the word sit there between them, "Uncle," and he smiles once, briefly, and the window rises, and the SUV pulls back into traffic and is gone within 30 seconds. Alana does not move the car for a full minute. She is not afraid. She is cataloging. There is a difference, and it is a difference that will matter before this story is done. Now she has a question she cannot unknot, and it is this: the threat that just materialized on a public street in Santa Monica did not come from outside the Han estate. It came from someone the twins recognized. Someone trusted enough to carry the word uncle in a child's mouth. The danger has an address. And it's the same address where she sleeps. Would you stay after a warning like that? Drop stay or run in the comments right now. The drive back to Malibu is silent in a way that has nothing good in it. Seo-jin stares out his window without blinking. Soo-hyun keeps his hands folded in his lap like a much older person managing something he cannot say out loud. When they reach the estate and the security gate closes behind them, neither boy moves immediately to get out of the car. Then Seo-jin asks, quietly, without looking at her, "Did your brother ever get warned like that?" The question lands somewhere unexpected in Alana's chest. She turns in her seat to face them both. "My brother didn't get warned," she says. "He got taken. And for a long time after that, I was so angry I couldn't see anything else. Couldn't eat right. Couldn't sleep. The anger felt like the only thing holding me together." She pauses. "But it wasn't holding me together. It was just loud enough to drown out everything else." Soo-hyun is looking at her now. "Pain doesn't get to decide who you become," she says. "That's your job." Upstairs, through the open east-facing window of his study, Jae-min-han hears every word of that exchange. He stands at the glass for a long moment after the twins have gone inside. The Pacific pushes against the cliffs below. He doesn't move for a while. That night, at 11:47, the estate's internal security system logs a keycard entry into Jae-min's private office. The keycard does not belong to Jae-min. It belongs to Dae-ho Kwon. The office is empty. Jae-min is in the east wing. The cameras inside the office have been placed on a 4-minute loop, a technical adjustment made 6 days earlier by a member of the security team who submitted a routine maintenance request that nobody thought to question. Dae-ho moves through the office in under 3 minutes. He opens nothing. He touches only one thing. What it is, and what it means, the footage does not show. The estate's head housekeeper, a quiet woman named Renata who had worked in Malibu's private residential sector for 19 years, stops talking the moment Alana mentions the date of the accident. Not slowly. Immediately. The way a person stops when they realize they have already said something they were not supposed to say. Alana notices. She doesn't push. She simply says, "That's okay," and moves the conversation somewhere safer, and 3 hours later she is sitting on the edge of her bed in the staff quarters with a yellow legal pad on her knee and a timeline that doesn't line up. The accident happened on a Tuesday evening in November. Pacific Coast Highway, northbound, half a mile past Pepperdine. The official report said Min Ji-han lost control of the vehicle on a rain-slicked curve. Single-car incident. No witnesses. The report was filed by a Los Angeles County unit and closed within 72 hours, an unusually fast resolution for a fatality involving someone connected to as many open federal watch files as Jae-min Han. Alana has not been a detective. She has not been a lawyer. But she has spent 15 years in systems that taught her one specific skill, how to read what paperwork is trying not to say. The insurance claim on the vehicle was filed the morning after the accident, before the official cause of death had been recorded. A shell company registered in Henderson, Nevada, absorbed the claim settlement and dissolved 4 months later. The same Henderson address appears on a secondary filing connected to a freight logistics company with port access in Long Beach. She circles the address twice. She does not know who Dae-ho Kwon is on paper. But she knows what she saw in the window of that SUV on Lincoln Boulevard. And she knows that a man whose relationship to these children is close enough to earn the word uncle does not warn a household employee on a public street unless he has a reason that runs much deeper than employment competition. Min Ji-han's death was not a random accident on a wet road. Someone made a decision. And someone else, with enough access and enough authority to close a county report in 72 hours, let that decision stand. The question that sits at the bottom of everything, the one Alana has circled 3 times on the legal pad without writing it down, is whether Jae-min Han knew. She finds him in the main corridor the following morning, moving toward the garage. She does not wait for a scheduled moment. "Your children feel unsafe," she says, "because they are." He stops. He turns slowly, the way a man turns when he has already decided the temperature of the conversation before it begins. "They have round-the-clock security," he says. "Security isn't the same as safe." She keeps her voice even. "One of your own people put a car alongside mine with your sons in the back seat. That wasn't a stranger. That was someone with an inside position. And your kids knew his face." The stillness that moves through Jae-min in that moment is not the stillness of a man who is hearing new information. It is the stillness of a man who is hearing confirmed information. He looks at her for a long moment. His jaw is set. His hands are at his sides. He does not deny a single word she has said. "What are you implying?" he asks. The words are careful and quiet, the way a door is held almost closed rather than latched. "That your silence," Alana says, "cost them their mother." The corridor holds them both in it. A clock somewhere in the east wing marks the half hour. Outside, the Pacific moves against the cliffs with the indifferent persistence it has maintained for 10,000 years regardless of what human beings are doing to each other above it. Jae-min Han does not speak. "If power cost your family everything, would you admit it?" Subscribe. Because what comes next in this house is heavier than anything that's come before. That night, alone in his study with the door locked and the lights low, Jae-min opens a manila folder that has lived in the bottom drawer of his private safe for 22 months. Inside it, photographs from the accident scene, a copied page from the county report, and a single handwritten note in his own writing, for words that he put down in the 2 weeks after Min-ji's death when he still believed that knowing the truth and acting on it were the same thing. He had suspected Dae-ho within the first month. He had found enough to be certain within the first 6. And he had chosen to do nothing, not out of loyalty, and not out of cowardice, but out of a calculation he made in grief, that moving against Dae-ho would fracture the network, expose the empire, and leave his sons with nothing at all. He told himself it was strategy. Looking at the folder now, in the low light, with Alana's words still sitting in the corridor where she left them, he is no longer sure what to call it. The fire alarm erupts at 2:17 in the morning. Not a test. The system coordinator confirms a triggered sensor in the East Wing service corridor, a deliberate pull, not a smoke response. Security floods the ground floor in under 90 seconds. The twins' rooms are empty. Both beds still warm. The window in Seo Jin's room is open 2 inches, enough for someone to have signaled, not enough for a child to have climbed through. Which means they walked out through a door. Which means someone inside this house let them. Jae-min Han does not raise his voice. That is the thing his security team will remember afterward, that in the 2 minutes following the confirmation that both children are gone from the estate, he does not shout, does not strike anything, does not issue a single word above a controlled, level tone. He stands in the center of the security room with his arms at his sides and his eyes moving across every active monitor, and the temperature of his presence drops so completely that the 3 men in the room with him instinctively take a half step back. Alana walks in 30 seconds after he does. She is dressed. She has her phone in one hand and her shoes already on. She looks at the monitors, at the open gate log, at the timestamp on the East Corridor camera that went to a recorded loop at 2:11, 6 minutes before the fire alarm. They're alive, she says. Jae-min looks at her sharply. Dae-ho doesn't want them dead, she says. He wants leverage. Dead children are a liability. Living children are a negotiation. He holds her gaze for a moment. Then he turns back to the monitors. The internal leak is confirmed within the hour. The security team member who filed the camera maintenance request 6 days earlier has not responded to 2 calls and is no longer at his assigned post. His keycard was last used at the East Corridor access point at 2:09 in the morning. The port of Los Angeles sits 17 miles south of the estate on a fog-heavy stretch of the one that feels, at 3 in the morning, like the edge of a continent rather than the middle of one. If you were Jae-min Han right now, what would you sacrifice to get them back? Leave your answer in the comments. By the time they reach the port, the fog has settled so completely between the stacked shipping containers that visibility drops to 30 feet in every direction. The smell is salt water and diesel and cold metal. Somewhere in the distance, a harbor light blinks its slow, indifferent rhythm. Dae-ho is standing in a cleared space between 2 rows of 40-foot containers, both twins in front of him, their wrists bound with a single loop of cord, loose enough to be symbolic rather than structural. Soo-hyun is standing straight. Seo Jin is watching the fog. Neither child is crying. Dae-ho looks at Jae-min the way old partners look at each other when something between them has been building for years and has finally found its moment. You went soft, he says. It is not an accusation. It is a diagnosis. After Min-ji, you let grief make decisions that strategy should have made. You let an outsider into this house and you let her change the temperature of everything you built. He gestures toward Alana, who has come in behind Jae-min. She leaves, Dae-ho says. Tonight. Permanently. You go back to running this operation the way it was built to run. And I return the boys, and we don't have this conversation again. The fog moves slowly between the containers. Jae-min says nothing. And then something happens that Dae-ho did not factor into his calculation. Soo-hyun turns around. Not toward his father. Not toward the armed men positioned at the container edges. He turns toward Alana. Takes 3 steps forward. Stops at her side. Seo Jin follows without a word. They do not run to her. They do not perform it. They simply move to where they have decided they are standing, and they stand there, 2 8-year-olds in the fog at the port of Los Angeles, making the clearest statement either of them has ever made without a single word. Dae-ho's expression shifts. Not dramatically. Just enough. He looks at the twins beside Alana, and he understands, with the clarity that comes too late, that the thing he was trying to remove from that household had already taken root so deeply that removing it would require taking the boys too, and the boys are the entire point. His hand moves. The weapon comes up, not toward Jae-min. Toward Alana. The fog holds everything. Nobody breathes. The sound that follows is a single, flat report that the fog absorbs almost immediately. It does not come from Daeho's weapon. Jae-min Han made his decision before the weapon fully cleared the holster. Not loudly. Not with the dramatic weight the moment might have carried in a different kind of story. He acted with the same controlled precision he has applied to every consequential decision in his adult life, the only difference being that this time, the thing he was protecting was not territory or leverage or reputation. Daeho Kwon, who has operated inside the Han network since its earliest days in Queens, who attended the twins' birth and stood at Minji's graveside and has eaten at Jaemin's table more times than either man could count, falls in the fog at the port of Los Angeles without ceremony. The armed men at the container edges stand down. They were always Jaemin's men. Daeho simply believed, to the very end, that loyalty to the operation outweighed loyalty to the man. He was wrong. In the weeks that follow, Daeho's financial network collapses the way a structure collapses when its single load-bearing point is removed, not gradually, but almost all at once. The Henderson Shell companies close. The Long Beach port contracts are absorbed by a competing logistics firm with no knowledge of what passed through them. Federal investigators in Los Angeles and New York pick up threads that have been present in their files for years, and they begin, finally, to go somewhere, though they will never fully arrive, because the man they are building toward has already begun the process of making himself unreachable in a different way entirely. Jae-min Han does not disappear. He restructures. The venture capital operation in Manhattan's Hudson Yards becomes the primary vehicle. The underworld positions are handed to a corporate management layer that understands its role and its limits. He does not pretend this makes him a different man. He simply decides that the version of himself his sons will grow up watching is a man who chose them, and that has to mean something going forward, or it means nothing at all. The twins begin seeing a therapist, a child psychologist based in Brentwood, recommended not by the estate staff but by Alana, who called in a professional contact she had held on to since her foster care years in Atlanta. The first 3 sessions are quiet. The fourth, Seo-jin talks for 40 minutes without stopping. On a Thursday evening in the 3rd week, Soo-hyun finds Alana on the West Terrace watching the sun go down over the Pacific. He sits beside her without asking. They watch the water together for a while. Then he says, in the particular tone he uses when he is asking something that has been building for a long time, "Why didn't you leave? When he warned you? When Daeho came? You could have just left." Alana is quiet for a moment. "When I was 17, she says, I was in a placement home in Decatur that I wanted to run from every single day. And there was a woman there, not a counselor, just a neighbor who came by twice a week to cook, who stayed every time I made it hard for her to stay. She never explained why. She just kept showing up." Alana watches the light on the water. "I don't know where I'd be if she hadn't. So I guess I stayed because I know what it costs a person when someone doesn't." Soo-hyun nods once, slowly, the way people nod when they are filing something away permanently. Power always asks for a price. The only question is what you're willing to pay it with. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let them inspire someone else who needs to hear it today. 3 weeks later, an envelope arrives at the estate addressed to Alana by name. No return address. Postmarked from a zip code in Lower Manhattan. Inside is a single photograph. It is taken from a distance, at night, from an angle that suggests the photographer was positioned across the highway rather than beside it. It shows the Pacific Coast Highway at the curve half a mile past Pepperdine. It shows Min-ji Han's vehicle on the shoulder, and it shows, clearly, without any ambiguity, a second vehicle parked 40 feet behind it. Not Daeho's SUV. A car she does not recognize. A driver whose face, even in the grainy distance of a nighttime photograph, is turned just enough toward the camera to suggest that whoever took this picture wanted the face to eventually be found. Alana holds the photograph for a long time. Then she looks up at the Pacific, wide and flat and moving steadily toward a horizon that offers no answers. Daeho did not act alone. She knew the ground beneath this house wasn't stable. She just didn't know how far down the instability ran. That night, for the first time since they arrived at the estate, the security cameras in the twins' corridor are turned off at Jae-min's instruction. Not because there is no longer danger in the world outside these walls, but because his sons deserve to sleep in a house where they are trusted rather than monitored. The rooms are quiet. Both boys sleep through the night. And in a glass-walled boardroom on the 43rd floor of a building in Midtown Manhattan, 7 people sit around a table at 11:58 in the evening, waiting for a call that has not yet come. One of them sets a photograph face down on the table. The vote begins. Subscribe and turn on your notifications, because the next story on this channel is the one you will not want to miss. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that the most powerful thing in any room is not always the loudest one in it. And if something in this story stayed with you, drop it in the comments. Your words might be exactly what someone else needed to hear today.